Hello, everybody. How you doing? All right. It's nice to see you. Nice to be here. John Fogerty's songwriting canon spans nearly 6 decades and includes foundational classics such as Proud Mary, Fortunate Son, Born on the Bayou, Bad Moon Rising, Have You Ever Seen the Rain? He has sold over 100 million records worldwide, and Creedence Clearwater Revival's album Chronicle, the 20 Greatest Hits, recently logged 728 weeks. That is 14 years on the Billboard Top 200. Only the 5th album ever to reach such a chart milestone. As one of the greatest songwriters of our time, he has received multiple awards and honors for his undeniable impact on the culture, including induction into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, the BMA Icon Award, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a Grammy Award, and a special honor for his song Center Field, making him the only musician ever honored by the Baseball Hall of Fame. And 3 of his Creedence songs have over 1 billion streams, people. Please welcome Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, John Fogerty. All right, Mike's over there. All right, Mr. Fogerty. You famously had a long legal battle over your music rights. Tell us the story, from signing your first bad contract as a teenager in the 60s to the redemptive moment of finally regaining the rights to your songs in 2023.
Oh, boy. You know what? I told you that after an hour I'd still be answering the first question. Wow.
I thought we'd come out hot.
Well, as a kid, probably about 18, I'd seen a special on television that was about Fantasy Records having their only hit with Cast Your Fate to the Wind. And it was a 3-part thing, so I watched that. My brother Tom had seen that. We decided I'd go over and knock on their door. Anyway, I won't go into all that detail, but eventually my band, we were calling ourselves the Blue Velvets. And we signed a contract when we were probably 19 years old. Tom was 21 by then. Later, another contract, I think, was signed. Then I did military duty. And so there was sort of a gap. But around 1967, I was coming back off of my active duty. It was a 6-month part. Ended up in the Army Reserve. But anyway, the band kind of vowed at that moment to try and be more solid and go for it, you might say. Saul Zaentz was the owner of Fantasy Records. We signed a contract in 1968, January, I want to say January 8th, but I think it's a little later. And that's the one. By the way,
what rights did you give away in that contract?
Well, oh my God. Anyway,
and what size check did you get?
Well, we had given the contract. You know, Saul gave me a copy of the contract. He said, "Here, you guys go study this." Our bass player, Stu Cook's father, was a lawyer. In fact, he was an entertainment lawyer. He represented the Oakland Raiders, right? So the band, our band, decided, well, Stu, go show this to your dad and see if this is on the up, right? I mean, we really wanted to sign a contract and have a record deal. So some time went by. We continued to do these like bar gigs and stuff, loading up the old VW microbus. And we're loading up instruments one day and off to a gig, you know. As we pass each other, somebody says, "Hey, Stu, what'd your dad say about that? What'd your dad say?" And Stu answers, "What'd he say about what?" He said, "What'd he say about the contract?" There was a pause. "Oh, he said it's okay." So we cheered and cheered, and we thought it was... Anyway, I'm trying to kind of let you know that after many years, I think I finally deduced that Stu never showed his dad that contract, because it was so bad. You know, as you grow up in this business or any legal thing, when you show somebody something that's any kind of proposal, the other side's supposed to change it and say, here's what we think. But that didn't happen. We just signed what was put under our nose. We gave up, of course, the idea of making records, but we also gave up songwriting publishing. And
100%.
yeah, they had it for all those years.
Yeah, and so then decades go by before you finally get the cat. What was it like during that sort of period in the wilderness where you don't own and have any rights to your own songs?
Oh, Tom.
Not to bring the event down. That is, it all works out in the end. Spoiler alert. It all works out.
Well, you know, I guess I should express, boy, let's get over this soap opera stuff. But anyway, so the band breaks up about 1972, and I figured, you know, my first thought was, well, that's it. The band broke up, contract's over, right? And Creedence, of course, has had all this enormous success. Come to find out, no, they're going to keep me under their option. So they held me, John, to the contract, but they let the other members of Creedence, formerly Creedence, go. So then I take the contract to an attorney, and I find out that I owe about 180 masters, right? The idea was there was, I forget, 36 masters plus 10 in each of 7 years. And we've only done 2 years. And the contract said that every year you didn't fulfill the 36 plus 10, it slid over into the next year, and then the next year. So I looked at that, and I decided it was probably going to take more than 20 years if I did an album every year. Yeah. Yeah. And when you tell a 27-year-old person, well, you're under contract for 20 years, to you, that's the rest of your life. Now, I was, at that point, free to go write songs because the publishing part of it had expired. But not the ownership, just the fact that I could write a new song and publish it somewhere else. But anytime I recorded music, I would have to give it to Saul's aunts, of course. Yeah,
that's so you were required to write 180 songs while they owned 100% of the publishing of the Creedence catalog.
Yeah, so I had to go back and see the same SOBs and cheerfully, you know, record a new track. At some point, things collided in my head, and I just, you know what, if I'm going to kill myself, I'll never survive this. I will lose my mind and then probably, you know.
Yeah, it's not going to be great. So 50 years later, though, 51 years later, after the band breaks up, you get your songs back. How did that come about?
Well, you know, last night we played a show here at Stubbs, and
that was a nice time.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. That was
nice
so wonderful. That was fun. And so are you, Mr. Guitar Player.
Oh,
wow.
Thank you for having me on stage. It's an honor. John, at sound check, I was like sort of, you know, playing more conservative. He's like, during the show, you should probably go for it. And I'm like, okay, then I'll play with my teeth. That's what I like.
Well, I didn't want him to be like respectfully holding back for the, you know, for your elder, I guess. I said, Tom, let it go, man. Do your, whatever you do it, right?
It's always an honor to play with you, and I had a ball last night, so thank you very much.
Me too, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So how'd you get your songs back?
Okay, basically, we had made, what do you call those, overtures to the record company and the publisher trying to get them back, and the answer was always no. And finally, just a couple of years ago, really, my dear wife, Julie, who is a manifester from far, far, far away, she said, you know what, I'm not taking no for an answer. There's got to be a way to figure this out. And she kept at it. I mean, that's really what it took. It was our attorneys here and there had said, nope, they're never going to sell them. I've been told they're not for sale. And somehow Julie managed to make it, get it into a sweet spot, I guess you'd say, where it worked out for everybody. And so, to not go into all the details, but basically, what I own is, I want to express something. Eventually, I was going to get to own the songs only in the United States, and the rest of the world was going to be owned by somebody else. So we worked out a deal where I own a majority, a very nice majority of the publishing, but it's worldwide. So therefore, there's nothing carved out of it, because my music has gone around the world, and you know, I would have. I'm sorry, I have things I could say about people that make you sign publishing deals, but I guess I'll just leave it at that. Or
some of them might be in this room right now, John. It's like
but I do want to say it's a blessing.
They're looking down at their hands right
now. My wife Julie is the one that made this happen, and she, you know, I'm sure victory has 1,000 fathers, but in this case, it was Julie's insistence that this be done now. And she got it done, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, baby.
Yeah. And so for the last couple of years, you've been on this celebratory tour, right? Like now the songs are yours again. So how, from that day of the liberation of your songs to last night at Stubbs, how have you been celebrating this momentous occasion?
Really, I love to play music. I absolutely love music. I mean, it's who I am. You know, I can't imagine being something else. I mean, music picked me, you might say. And so I've always, from the time I started playing my songs again and going out touring, which was about 1997, I think I always had a good time. But I have to admit, it's not so much the fact that you own it. Everybody knows I'm not the world's greatest businessman. For me, it's kind of not about business. But the fact that the songs have come back to the author is a great big deal to me. And it just feels like something that finally clicked into place the way it was meant to be all along. And that joy, being out on stage, playing, my two sons are in my band. Julie's usually sitting right off stage watching, and sometimes a couple other family members are there. So I'm making music absolutely with the people I love and that love me, and we kind of get to love all these songs all together. It's just with great joy I get to do this.
Yeah, you can really feel that on stage, like the family affair, and then the joy that I feel in knowing that those songs are yours when you're playing them, and there's not that estrangement, and that's pretty awesome. We saw that last night. So we were talking backstage. At 10 years old, you had your moment where you knew you had to be a musician. What was that? What was that moment like?
Oh man! Wait, I'm going to get a drink of water here.
Take your time.
You got to hydrate, otherwise you'll lose your voice.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Elvis came along in 1956. I was in front of my TV. No, actually, I heard him. It was on Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey, their show. It had a name, and I can't remember it now. Anyway, there was this guy. I caught the third week. It turns out Elvis was on Saturday night on television 5 weeks in a row, breaking with his song Heartbreak Hotel. And I just saw the meanest, badass guy standing there with all black except a white tie, and of course hair all the way to the sky, and wiggling and just acting really casual, defiant, kind of punky in a nice way. I just was mesmerized. One day, shortly after that, I found myself up in my mom's bedroom in front of a mirror with a broom, and kind of just standing. I don't even know what I picked up the broom. I was probably cleaning out the fireplace, to tell you the truth. We all had chores. I went up there with the broom, and I kind of didn't know what I was. I stood there and saw myself in the mirror. And, because I'd seen Elvis doing that. Of course, he's doing it on that side, but I was watching on TV, and anyhow, I was mesmerized. Well, a little bit later, probably around May or June of that year. Of course, Elvis just came on like gangbusters. He had the Heartbreak Hotel. RCA put out all his old things like I Don't Care If the Sun Don't Shine and Mystery Train. All these things were on the radio within 3 months. And then I Want You, I Need You, I Love You was another great big hit. I'm up in this place called Winters, California, which is near the Puda Creek, which I later wrote about as Green River. This was a family vacation place. Anyway, they were in town in this little general store that's got groceries and bait and tackle and all kinds of stuff, some clothes, I'm sure, inner tubes. And suddenly I hear music. It's, oh my God, what is that? And I run over, there's a jukebox in this place, and I try to, quickly figure out what's playing because I've never heard this before, and I really, really like it. It's primal, it's dangerous, it's mysterious. And I just got to, find out what it is. I finally figure out it's a song called My Baby Left Me. It's the other side of Elvis's I Want You, I Need You, I Love You. And I stood there watching this, and this insane guitar going, and I finally, before the song was over, I said, I don't know what that is, but that's what I want to do. And that's where I made up my mind.
At 10 years old. Well, thankfully, you did. Yeah. John, I have always admired your attention to the craft of music, your knowledge about gear, your continued practice regimen. How does the work ethic and focus shape your music? For example, we're just backstage now, and John we played together at the 25th anniversary Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he asked me backstage now, he remembered what amp I used that night and said, do you still have that 50-watt Marshall? And I was like, how do you remember that, dude? But I've always noticed about you, there is a real attention, a deep attention to the craft. Can you tell us how that informs your work?
Well, I think when I was young, of course, that song, My Baby Left Me, was the guitar was Scotty Moore, and I was enthralled with the style. He had kind of borrowed a little bit from Chet Atkins, and he was playing with a thumb pick and then a couple of fingers. Other times he would play with a pick, right? And I just was enthralled with Scotty Moore on those Elvis records. And later in life, really not then, but later in life, I took to being more precise about my playing. This is probably after the Creedence time, although, by the way, I covered My Baby Left Me with Creedence at some point. I kind of learned that certain guitars make certain sounds, and certain amplifiers make certain sounds, and also your hands are very important. But this was, like I say, kind of later, around okay. Can I diverge?
By all means.
Okay.
Well, is yours.
You may, let's see, way back when we did
John Fogerty, you do anything you want, man.
We did the Johnny Cash show.
We're here for it.
This is 1969, and Creedence got called to do the Johnny Cash show. We did a couple songs. I think we did Bad Moon Rising at that point. But we're stuck in a dressing room with all the people, Roy Orbison, Carl Perkins, once in a while. See, Glenn Campbell came in, Johnny came by in there, but there was a musician named Tut Taylor, and he played dobro, and I really didn't know much about that, but I was fascinated with dobro, so as soon as I could, actually before we left the Johnny Cash show, there was this skinny little kid, kind of a hippie-looking kid, and I started talking about, I want to get a dobro. And this kid says, hey, I can get you one. So he tells me he goes off somewhere, and there's a place that's full of them, and he comes back, and I buy a dobro. I don't know anything about it except what Tut Taylor has kind of showed me. By the way, he played it sort of wrong. He played it with a flat pick. The kid that got that dobro for me was George Gruen. I think he was probably, or I think I was probably his first customer. He didn't really have a real business yet. So I went home and started playing with the thing and used it on the Creedence song, Looking Out My Back Door. Well, somewhere around 1992, I was at a guitar show in Pomona, and some guys are pulling a big cart and got a bunch of cases. They said, well, what do you got over there? He said, oh, I got a dobro. Well, I hadn't touched the dobro in 40-something years. And he opens it up, and I said, can you play that? And he says, yeah. And he makes a little noise on it. I said, I want to buy that. So in '92, I got back interested in dobro. Finally, you people may know this, all roads of dobro lead to Jerry Douglas. And Jerry Douglas is my favorite musician, okay? Now, I'm finally going to answer your question. I started listening a lot to Jerry Douglas because he's the greatest, as far as I'm concerned, dobro player. And one day, just casually, because I'm just taking in the dobro, I realized, wow, I've been hearing all these other great guys, like Edgar Mayer, Sam Bush, you know, some of these players. I said, these guys are all freaking amazing. I said, I gotta, oh, and then what happened was this flashlight in my head was kind of poking around on the little molecules, and it shined on a thing I had said when I was 14. And when I was 14, I had said, I'm going to grow up and be the greatest guitar player in the world. And of course, I hadn't thought about that in a long time. The flashlight shined on that, and it's, oh my God, I was 48 years old. And most people at that point would go, eh, right? And what I did was I said, oh man, I got to get busy. So I started practicing like crazy, 8 hours a day, dobro, and that finally led me back to doing guitar with the same vengeance. So much so that I didn't want to wreck my family life. My wife was already pretty much a dobro widow at that point. So I started getting up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and practicing until it was time for me to wake up the kids and take them to school.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
I still have that. I still do that. It's a little later now because they're grown up, but I do that every day.
Well, that commitment to excellence it shows in your work, and so we were just talking about this backstage, but like rock and roll is like it's sort of one part magic and one part kind of administrative craft. So we played together at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then we were both playing with Bruce Springsteen at Hyde Park a few years later. And you were saying that you had in your mind that you were maybe thinking about maybe me playing on a song on your upcoming record, and not even knowing that I was there at Hyde Park. And then what happened? There was like sort of a magical moment that occurred.
Well, I've been pondering. I was working on a song or an album called "Wrote a Song for Everyone," and I had already gotten vocals on it, and I had thought it really needed a soaring guitar solo, you know, and Tom Morello would be a good choice. Wow. So, I mean, for a few days, even a couple of weeks maybe, I was thinking that you're the guy. How do I contact him? So now I'm at the Hyde Park show and watching Bruce, and we're kind of on a side portion, so we weren't out in the audience. I said, yeah, I really got to get Tom Morello to play. And then the wind blew the curtain like that, and Tom's standing right there. Oh, my God. You know, of course, I didn't run up to you right away, but obviously something was going on.
Yeah. But so that's the magical part, and now's the craft part. Now, people ask me to play on their records pretty regularly, right? And if it's something I want to do, I'll go to my home studio, and I'll play on the track, and I'll send it to them, and they're always like, oh, thank you, Tom, very much. I tell John, that's what I'm going to be. He's like, no. I want you to come down to the studio. I want to sit there, and I want to watch you play it, and I want to sort of produce the session. I'm like, yes, sir. I'll be there for that. And you did. And it was excellent to have that kind of, like you cared so much, and your attention to detail, and, this is maybe 10, 15 years ago now, but like the commitment to excellence and to the craft was very, very evident on that day as it is today.
Well, I want to say something about that, Tom. You said, well, can you give me any hints? Like, what would you want to, what should I do? I said, play something heroic. And so he played, and he really only did 2 or 3 takes, right? But what we do is you take the best bits when somebody records. We do this with vocals, we do it with solo parts, that kind of thing. And so anyway, he had played it for, he probably was out there in the studio maybe total 15 minutes. He comes back in and he says, well, how was it? I said, that was heroic. Absolutely, it blew my mind. It's a wonderful solo. You should go check it out.
For my part, it was nerve-wracking, because it's one thing to be in your own studio just taking your time, and it's another thing with like John Fogerty in the room there going like, I know he's listening, I know he's thinking it's got to be half as good as the dobro. That's where I got to go with it. So, all right, let's talk about the politics in your music. Fortunate Son became an anti-establishment anthem, very Rage Against the Machine before Rage Against the Machine. What are the origins of that song? There's some younger people here who may not know about the origins of that song, and does it resonate? The message in that song, does it resonate today?
Well, first of all, I mentioned that I had been drafted in 1966. Eventually got into the Army Reserves, and of course had to do active duty. I didn't go to Vietnam. Luckily, I stayed here in the States. But you kind of learn the culture. You feel a little more part of the military, I guess. I'm not going to sit here and say I loved that. It was interrupting my music life. I mean, it wasn't something I actually really wanted to do. Most people my age at that time hated the Vietnam War, and we kind of wished the thing would just go away. But I had been, let's say, given that experience. And at the same time, there were, I call them wise guys. You'd see on television that some senator had gotten his son a deferment, or some, business tycoon had bought his way, out of actually bought his son out of military duty. That really pissed me off. It pissed me off for all the other guys that were drafted and were going to Vietnam. I mean, I felt that quite deeply. It didn't seem fair. It didn't seem like a fair situation. It was rich people lording it over us peasants, So all of that was in my mind. I actually rehearsed the song with the band for a few weeks, as was my habit in those days, but I really didn't know what the song was going to be about. Way back in the day, they would have these political conventions back when they were black and white and really smoky looking, And somebody would get up and say, Your Honor, the great state of Texas would like to nominate her favorite son, Billy Saul Estes, right, for president. And a lot of states did that. As a kid, I kind of took that to heart. And I kind of thought I was going to write a song called Favorite Son. I went into my bedroom because of the pressure of now having to do it, because it was getting time to record this thing. Had a yellow pad, sat on the edge of my bed, and started thinking about all the stuff, especially the unfairness of it all. And at some point, it kind of rage came out of me. It crystallized perfectly in my mind. I didn't have any of the phrases at all, nothing. And suddenly I'm saying to myself, some folks are born made the way the flag. They're so political and patriotic, super patriots and all that. Make America, all that stuff. Anyway, they stick you right in your face, and I was getting angrier and angrier, but I ain't no senator's son, and and then the next verse is about money and privilege. I ain't no me, it ain't me, I ain't no millionaire's son. Anyway, about 20 minutes later, I had written the whole thing down. I think I'd had kind of a epiphany or one of those things. It could have been 8 hours, but it was literally 20 minutes that I came out of it. Oh my God, this is cool. Thank you. Oh, might I add, because we don't want to probably stay on that subject, but boy, if there are a lot of young artists, musicians out there, I think you better get to writing, because now is the time.
You could be just 20 minutes away from the next anthem. That's the lesson that we just learned right there. So many of your songs tell vivid stories. What's your lyric process, writing process like? You described some of it there, but maybe pick another one of your of the big hits and like that story writing process. Like, where does that come from?
I'll tell you about my first one. Okay. It was okay. This actually happened while I was still in the military. And every day they would take us out, usually after lunch. I was stationed at Fort Lee, Fort Bragg, and Fort Knox. And they would take you out and march you on like a mile square asphalt field, like a gigantic parking lot. And, you know, you're in your full battle fatigues with a rifle and a helmet on and all that. It's like 115, 120 degrees, especially at Fort Lee, which now has a different name, but I can't remember what it is. And it's humid as all get out. So you're marching around for probably 2 hours like that. And what I started to do was to kind of meditate. You're marching along. I mean, all you got to do is stay in step. And I just started, my mind was wandering, right? And after a few days of doing this, I actually got to where I was looking forward to it. It's amazing, but, and it turned out what I started doing was I was writing an autobiographical story that was kind of about me, but of course it took some liberties and puffed things up and had some other characters and all that kind of thing. And I realized I was writing a story that might be a song, right? And when I got off active duty, I came back home and put that thing together. It was a very nice story. I ended up calling it Porterville. It was on the first Creedence album. Even though I don't say the word Porterville in the song, I was describing kind of a mythical situation that maybe would take place. That was the first time I actually was creating a story that was beyond, you know, Betty Lou, you made me blue. Oh, what am I going to do?
So how the way that the meaning of a song changes over time. Fortunate Son's one example where it has sort of a contemporary resonance. You know, some of your other songs as well, listening to like the set last night. First of all, tell me one thing that I care so much about is a set list, right? And the idea of crafting like a narrative for the night. How do you decide what songs you're going to play, what order, what you're going to open with, et cetera? Because I think that like if you were at the show last night, it's a very, very, first of all, it's hit laden, and then, but just like the narrative arc of the evening was one that I thought was very, very compelling. And I'm just wondering, like, what are you thinking when you're deciding what to play on a given evening? Like last night, what made you decide what you were going to play last night?
Well, Tom, you know, I just go on Chat GPT or whatever that is.
Chat GPT.
No!
Chat GPT, this is John Fogerty. What are my biggest bangers? Put them in order.
Yeah. Well, you learn a lot trying to be an entertainer, and that's a whole nother subject. But, you know, I want people to have fun. I want them to be entertained. I want them to join in. I want them to sing along, you know, all these wonderful things that have come to me just because I get to be a musician. And I feel really blessed and very grateful because I just love doing it so much. But I think over time, I mean, for me, it's going way back to when I was at the Monkey Inn, which is a little bar in Berkeley. You noticed songs would have an effect, certain songs. Every time we played Blue Suede Shoes, a fight would break out. Every single time. So, you know, it's kind of like that. You sort of pace your hour and a half or whatever it's going to be to have it tell that story. But I think it's all about the audience.
Yeah, yeah. You've played with so many legends. Do you have a favorite collaboration?
Wow. Yes, Tom Morello.
You charmer. Well, why don't we talk about one of our favorite collaborations? What's it like playing with Springsteen? I have some experience.
I love Bruce.
Regard
Oh
as well.
God,
Yeah,
you know he's
a super fan of yours, by the way. Like he speaks so deeply and genuinely about his love for John Fogerty as a person, but how meaningful and important your catalog is to his work in music, too. I've told you that before, but I want to say it publicly. But anyway, so what's it like playing with the boss?
Well, I think my love for him springs from the same place. I love his songs. I love his passion about his songs. I love that he really has a good time playing music, enjoys it. It comes from his soul, his heart. I mean, you know, it's nice that he likes me too. That's pretty cool. You know, but I would be there anyway. From hearing the music, and there's so much passion. You know, so people that write songs and sing songs can put that whole thing together and get it out of themselves to the audience. I think that's what I really envy and try to emulate. Yeah. So it's a big party. That's what it is.
One of the things I see in him that I feel in myself is that, like, Bruce never stopped being a fan. You know, and like when I play with you last night, I'm I'm giddy. Like, it's so exciting to be able to rock some of those all-time great jams.
Me too, actually.
Yeah. It's a ball. It's a ball. Okay, so what keeps you motivated to continue performing and writing new music now?
Oh, I think that's it. Well, I have the guitar in my hands every day. You know, I mentioned that, and my whole discipline about doing that. And that leads to wonderful things. Certainly, the first part is it just makes me feel better. Yeah. You know, it's what I got to do. A lot of times, you ask about the process. I'll be sitting there, and suddenly I'll play some notes, and I go, oh. So I'll play them again, and if I figure out just the way those notes should be, it turns into a riff, like a memorable little piece of music that could start something. And a lot of, actually, I would say most of the songs I've written started that way, and it said, okay, I got to write a song that goes with this now. And that was the inspiration to get it going. You know, Green River has right? And that was what unleashed the whole rest of the song.
So from 100 million records sold to the show last night at Stubbs, what's some advice that you could give to some of the people in the room here, young musicians, people who are maybe starting out on the journey at a different time in our history, but what would you say to them?
Wow. Well, I would say go with your passion. You know, just what I told you last night. Just let it all out, man. You know, don't hold back. You got to really love it because it's going to be tough here and there. Trust me. But if you really love it enough and you're willing to be bad in front of people, because inevitably that's what happens. That's how you learn, right? Especially when you're very young, 12, 13 years old, guitar is going to not function right, bass or the amp is going to blow up. You know, things are going to they just happen. They happen so much, we could say, that's rock and roll, you know. Or maybe another musician over there is going to let you down or something. Or maybe there'll be an incident. There's just so much stuff happening that makes it bad. But inside, you got to keep that little ember going that, wow, this is what I love to do. And maybe I'm not so good right now. You know, it doesn't just come out, you know, perfect. It's kind of like a weightlifter, and you're a skinny little 11-year-old. You got to practice at it and try to figure out the moods and also get stronger in certain elements in your life as you're picking or you're writing. Honesty, discipline. And then if you can follow that road, you probably got a good chance.
I think that there's maybe like 3 routes. First of all, one of the things that I would suggest is you have to decide what it is that you want to be. Do you want to be popular? Do you want to be a musician? Do you want to be an artist? I think those are 3 different routes. To be popular, I couldn't tell you how to do that. You get some algorithm is going to answer that for you. To be a musician, you have to practice technique. You have to work at it to be a musician. To be an artist, you have to have ideas. And you have to look inside yourself to find something that is uniquely you that is in no one else. I think in this day and age where, you know, like rock and roll is not exactly clogging the top of the charts, but there are a lot of people that feel that they've got that in them. The only mark of success is to play something that you love and you believe in. And whether you're doing that in your basement or whether you're doing that in a stadium, if you've got that, it's everything. everything. It's everything. That something can never be taken away. I know, people in bands that are popular, musicians that are popular, and they don't care or really like, it's not meaningful to them what it is that they're doing on a stage on a particular night. Whereas there's open mic nights, I'm sure in Austin somewhere tonight, where someone is playing as if everyone's soul in the room is at stake, and something that is a deeply meaningful moment that could only happen because their truth is being expressed. That's what I would say to young people.
Let's give it up for Tom Morello. When we came out here, I had secretly thought that I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to interview Tom.
And it helps to have a dobro. That's another thing, too, that'll lock that down for you. All right. So on May 28th, you will turn 80 years old.
Oh, my God.
Your music... And you look great. You look great. Your music has not only stood the test of time, but 55 plus years later, and you're still finding new audiences, which is incredible. My teenagers know you from 2 viral TikTok songs from the Creedence catalog. In the car I was talking to John, my teenagers in the car with me the other day, and we get off the phone. He's like, "Who are you talking to?" I was like, "That's John Fogerty, Creedence Clearwater." He's like, "I don't know what this is. Let me play you a song." And he knew every song. He just didn't, he could sing the hook from every song. Anyway, that's pretty incredible. How do you plan on celebrating life and career at 80?
Well, I want to be surrounded with my family and friends and fans and just have a great time and show the world the joy that I'm feeling and also the fact that I mean, this is the most perfect situation I could imagine. This is heaven on earth to me. I love music. I love my family. My family is in the music, and the music is in my family. It's just the best feeling, and to go out in front of the fans and have everybody, no one has to look at me anymore and go, "Yeah, that guy got really screwed. Yeah, poor sap. Wow." Now it's great, and I'm just so blessed and happy and appreciative that all these good things are coming my way. So that'll be what I feel on that particular birthday and actually every day of my life.
Yeah, right on. Well, let's give it up for John Fogerty. Happy birthday. We're not done yet, but just it's an early 80th birthday celebration. How do you want to be remembered in rock history?
I want to be remembered that I played in tune. That's kind of a joke.
You're one ahead of me there.
Yeah. Well, that's elusive as well, Really, I think that first of all, that I was a good family man, a good husband, a good father. I mean, when it's all said and done, that's what's actually important here. A career is what you do, right? And no matter what it is, what you do, it shouldn't take up all your time when you have a family. My wife and I used to joke about the weekend golfers, right? Says, "Oh yeah, that means they're not going to see Dad from Friday till Monday," And I didn't want to be that way. It was one of the reasons, actually, when I started touring again, I came to Julie and I said, "Honey, I'm not going to do this without you." And then she kind of looked over that way at our kids. She says, "Well, I'm not going to do this without them." So we all just started joining the tour, and that's how that's how Dad's career kept going.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So in what ways, John, can music change the world?
Oh, wow. Do you know there's a song called "Fortunate Son"? That's actually one of the favorite songs and most played by perhaps the greatest single example of a fortunate son that we've ever seen. I mean, that's a change. I do think an idea, especially back in my formative years, my mom took me to see Pete Seeger a lot. I probably saw him more than, give it up, come on. I really love Pete Seeger. I actually got to meet him when I was 12 years old. at this folk festival in Berkeley that my mom also took me to. And Pete was actually the greatest entertainer I've ever seen, far and above. And he had a song called Where Have All the Flowers Gone? And it just really tells the story about politics and about war in such an eloquent way. The sadness of it, you know, it's one of those things that goes around and then hits you with its final line. And I was probably 12 years old when I first saw him perform that. And he would sing that at every show. I admit that Pete had a big influence on my own personal politics and also my musicianship. And in many ways, they overlap. But like Pete, in many ways, they're separate. Pete also had a great time at his concerts. He didn't sit there and, you know, with a big book and hit you over the head with his politics. He just sort of did it with a song, and he did a lot of other songs that were pure entertainment.
I think that that's right, that the, you know, can music change the world? Like for you, it was Pete Seeger. For me, it was like Public Enemy and The Clash. That like, can music, you know, if the question is, can music change the world? Well, music changed me, and it, on the one hand, it made me feel less alone in some of my beliefs and convictions that I was not seeing in the community around me, and also made me think that there's maybe a way, like, that I might have my hands on the wheel of history too, maybe with a guitar, or maybe with a pen, or maybe with a paintbrush, or maybe with a Molotov or a brick, who knows? But that there's
it crossed my mind as well.
Yeah. Well, but there are ways that music can sort of crack that door open for possibilities that go beyond. It really speaks. I think it speaks to, you know, there's something in our reptilian brain that music speaks to in a way that nothing else does. And like in your songs, the way that the right beat and the right couplet resonates in a way with the tribe gathered to celebrate it together, it feels like the truth in a way that nothing else can. So anyway, thank you very much. Now, we've talked about music, which is great, and we enjoy music, but now we're going to talk about our first love, baseball. Okay. So first of all, you are the only musician recognized by the Baseball Hall of Fame. How did that come about? Tell us about that.
Tom's a big baseball fan.
I am.
So, and of course I am too. Can I just tell you, hey buddy, ha ha. Look what I got to do, man. I mean, it's actually what happened is the song is inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And
song centerfield.
It's so much that I love baseball. You know, at some point when I get to be Willie Mays and go to those, you know, a little dinner or something, and there's John Fogerty back there, and they go, hey. It's just awesome. It's just awesome. I never thought something like that would happen. You know, my certainly eternal love baseball, which it still is, and you know, being in a professional game, let's say, with my family, and suddenly they're playing center field, or else they just use the clap, kick, 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 you know. It's just the greatest. It's really cool.
All right, well, we're going to take questions in just a second, but I just want to say thank you once again, John Fogerty, for, you know, 80 years of an awesome and incredible life of music that we've all benefited from, and it's changed our lives. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We got some. We're taking questions from the crowd here. You give John the standing ovation in a few minutes. We got about like 12 minutes to take it. Do you believe music will continue to serve as a binding force in They just moved that out. Oh, there it is. Okay. Do you believe music will continue to serve as a binding force in political protest movements like it has 75, 50, or even 25 years ago?
Oh, yeah. I think, look, as I just challenged the young writers, get busy, man. We need you. We need you now. You know, somebody's got a right to have you, where have all the flowers gone?
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see something like that. Yeah, at least be topical.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when we had the Rage Against the Machine Hall of Fame thing a couple of years ago, people were always like, we need Rage now, and I was like, Rage isn't here, but you are. Like quit complaining and make your own band and say what's on your mind now. It's like, don't wait for somebody else to put a flag up there for you to salute. Build your own damn flagpole. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. All right. Tom, what's your favorite song written by John? And John, what's your favorite song written by Tom? I will not hold you to know all the songs in the Rage catalog. I would say that Fortunate Son is one that I've performed a number of times live, and that I really feel that class consciousness, sort of anti-war anthem that is, like, is not tied to any particular era, that it is something that is very, very present right now, and that I feel that every day, and so that would be my choice. Though there were so many bangers last night, it's really hard to choose, but I'll put that one at the top. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and let's see, where are we at? As two musicians who are passionate about social and political issues, how were you able to relate despite playing such vastly different types of rock music? I'm not sure that we play such vastly different types of rock music, I'd say,
No,
the snare often hits on the 2 and the 4, you know what I mean, in both of them, right?
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm sorry this thing is sticking on the political theme, but there are a lot of other things to write about as well.
Yeah.
That all people. Let me just say that music should be a binding force, a thing that brings people together. It brings understanding. I mean, to me, that would be probably the most important part and the most important use in a time when things are so, let's say, polarized. It'd be nice to help people get together.
Yeah. What are some artists who people may not be familiar with who you'd like to recommend? Can be older, can be newer, something that maybe people in the room are not familiar with. Who would you like to say, you guys should listen to blank?
Well, there's that story I tell about how I evolved to a Les Paul guitar, and then I named Jimmy, Jeff, and Eric. And with some humor or irony, I stepped back because a lot of people don't know who I'm talking about. And then, well, that's Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and Eric Clapton. And because there's years have gone by. There's a lot of folks like that. As I mentioned, Scotty Moore, if you want to hear great picking, or James Burton, right?
Yeah.
The fella that I actually know that I learned a lot from playing Telecaster is Brad Paisley. He's just a super great guitar player and really nice guy. Showed me a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he's a shredder too. Like he keeps some of it in reserve, but I've seen that guy. He's also one of the loudest guitar players I've ever heard too. Like, present company accepted. Wait, there was a good one on here that I just saw. What are you looking for? Oh, so my recommendations of a couple newer acts. One is an Irish rap group called Kneecap, who you may have heard of, who do a lot of. They rap in Gaelic. They sort of have taken their culture as part of the thing. It's a really, really great group there. They have some Rage Against the Machine isms in their vibe. And also the Texas rapper Big X the Plug is just awesome. If you may or may not know that, write that one down. My 13-year-old turned me on to that, and he said, if you run into Big X, let me know. I'm like, if I do, I sure will. So, okay. Was there a song you wrote in which you weren't in the best of moods? Don't move the thing when I start saying it, because then I lose it. Just leave it right there. Was there a song you wrote in which you weren't in the best of moods with the label and perhaps turned out to be a great song? Have you commented on the label troubles in your art?
You mean back in the early days? Because that's when most of that difference happened.
Yeah. Was it?
I will say in the 80s, I was on Warner Brothers, and that was like that was heaven on earth. That was the best place you could be.
Yeah.
Mo Austin and Lenny Warnaker, awesome music people.
All right, so I love the observation Tom made about set lists, and wonder if John and Tom feel we lost something when we lost LPs that told a story or had a flow. We haven't lost LPs, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Well, how can I say it? Songs have always sort of been manifested by the medium that they're on. I mean, the 3-minute song or so was invented because of the '78 record, right? You just couldn't put any more stuff in there. Then the LP came along, and now Sony, or it was called Columbia then, got to release Benny Goodman at Carnegie Hall, and we got to hear a song called Sing, Sing, Sing with Gene Krupa doing his wonderful drum solo. Boy, I realize I'm probably talking right over the tribe's head here, but that's incredible music from another era, and boy, I listen to that all the time. My mom, of course, liked that. That was her music.
Yeah.
So the medium seemed to define how the thing was going to be presented. Of course, then we got the CD, and people started having 19 or 21 track albums, and it's like, I don't know, after 6 or 7 songs, you put it on the next record, you know.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I wax nostalgic about. I was a child of the LP era, but one of the things now that I'd say that is an advantage is that because music is more in some ways, the distribution is more democratic, but then also 200,000 new songs come out a day, so it's just there's no real funnel anymore. However, like I know from my teenagers, like they love rap, they love 60s rock, they love everything is available to taste. It's a big taste platter, which I think is a good thing. And we've got 3 Creedence songs at 1 billion streams apiece, so we must be doing something right. So
that's just magical and remarkable. If your song is streamed, especially to a great degree, it means that young people are listening to it because that's their media. That's streaming.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible. Is a Rage Against the Machine Creedence mashup in the works? Well, funny. We talk about it. We have a secret plan to rope in a couple of our friends to do something not dissimilar from that. But maybe one day.
Take over the world.
Yeah, maybe one day. We'll be knocking on Bruce's door. We got an idea. All right, I think that unless there's any, one last one. How do you balance creativity with business, and what advice do you have for artists who want to protect their art while building a lasting career?
Oh, this isn't what you asked, but I'm going to answer. If you're a songwriter, the first thing you ought to do is form your own publishing company. And then make sure you get to keep your song, the publishing end, because all the rules about the business part, they're written for the publisher. They're not really written for the songwriter. I'm saying that from my own personal experience. I know if you're trying to get signed to a label, you're going to run into some friction there, but if your songs are good enough, you're going to hang on to that. Also, to actually answer what that question was, anything that refers to business that comes in, I say, honey, would you look at this, please? She's got a great track record, and I don't. So
and she's actually reading the contract, unlike your first one that went unread, signed unread. All right, last question here. For musicians that love writing and have not made it, aside from ritual practice and persistence and love of the art, how do you keep going?
Wow. Well, I think the reward is the doing. How can I say? At several points the very first one, when I finished writing Proud Mary, I was an unknown, and I was shaking with the knowledge that it was far better than anything I'd ever done. And, I was enough of a student of history and loving music and all the greats that I admired, like Lennon and McCartney or Irving Berlin or whatever. I looked at Proud Mary, oh my goodness, I called it a classic, right? This is going to be a classic. And I was the only one in the whole world that knew it. I'm sitting in a room by myself, but it just spoke to me that way. And at that point in time, that was my reward. I knew that I had, all my life I'd been wanting to write songs, and this was the first one that was really good. Do I have time to tell a story?
Please do. Please do.
Okay. When I was about 3 years old, my mom brought me home from nursery school and sat me down on a little chair, and she kind of made a little ceremony out of this thing. I'd been at school with all my friends, where she was a part-time teacher. And she said, Johnny, I'm going to give you a record, and both sides of this record are songs that are written by Stephen Foster. And then she plays Oh Susanna and Camptown Races, doo-da, doo-da. Anyway, I really liked them, and she said, now, Stephen Foster is the man that wrote those songs. And she said, I don't know, around that, she inspired me, and I was actually thinking that Stephen Foster was, by the way, my mother knew Stephen Foster, so they took that as if it was straight. That's 200 years ago, people, come on. Anyway,
she did.
She made a little ceremony, and the rest of my life, of course, I'm now a huge Stephen Foster fan, but I just think it's remarkable that you would tell such a young person about songwriters. You know, I mean, I didn't know who wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You know, I mean, you just don't worry about that when you're a kid. But she wanted me to know that story, and it blessed me for the rest of my life. You know, I think some of the storytelling, some of even the style or the setting of my songs, it certainly comes from my love of Stephen Foster.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I would say that, like, how do you keep going? Say one thing to keep in mind is that true art is contagious. And I didn't
hope so.
Yeah, and I didn't start like singer-songwritering until my 30s. I was at a teen homeless shelter on Thanksgiving on Hollywood Boulevard, and they were having a talent show. And there was this teenage kid who got up there, and his story was a tragic one, and his guitar was out of tune, and his voice shook, but he sung it like he meant it in such a way that like it stopped me dead in my tracks. And I thought, I was happily playing arenas with Audioslave at the time, and I was like, I need more of that in my life. Now, that person did not have a career, but they touched me so deeply in ways that they'll never know, that has led to me playing hundreds and hundreds of shows and making connections with audiences that they would never expect. By making true art in that one moment, I don't know who else that might have affected, but I know that your show last night was true art that affected people at Stubbs. Then wherever you're playing, if it's on a street corner, if it's in an arena, that just being true to yourself and what you do can have resonance well beyond that night. And so I would just say, keep playing from your heart. That's my message to you one more time. And now, last thing, the very last thing, John Fogerty, we are busy celebrating. Do you have any final words for your friends, fans, and the presumably FBI agents in the audience?
Well, I just feel blessed. I want everybody to know that, you know, even though way back when, I call them the dark times, I got through that, especially through the beautiful and wonderful grace of meeting Julie, who is my wife. And so my life is wonderful. And the fact that these songs have now come back to me, that's even more wonderful. But I think I just want people to know that I enjoy the fact that you sing my songs, that you are fans of the music, that you listen to the message, whatever it may be, and know that I really appreciate it, and that's what keeps me going. Thank you.
John Fogerty, thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Lots of love, man.
Thank you, man.